All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Dr. David Mars. David, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as a young therapist, Dr. Mars went into couples therapy looking for help. Instead, he found that the models offered seemed to make matters worse by unnecessarily drawing out and evoking the vicious cycle of distress. He found that instead of offering help and support, most couple therapy sessions focused on what is wrong in a relationship instead of what is right. This set into motion 4 decades of dedicating himself to developing a couples treatment model that works in a kind, effective, pleasurable, and time-efficient way. And we're going to spend time talking about that today. David, welcome.
Thank you.
So before we get going here, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
I grew up in Massachusetts, in Western Mass, and with a family of 4 brothers and a mother and a father, and a good deal of, and interestingly, my parents dug the basement for their house and built their own house, which they lived in for 75 years. What a remarkable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
A good pioneering stock there.
All right. So I'm going to jump. How the heck did all this start for you?
Well, when I was a little kid, I was very aware that my house is very chaotic. And at about 5, 6 years old, I said to my bigger brother, Donald, would you bring me out to the forest? I want to go out there and just take me out there, because I couldn't go alone. I was too young, but he was my protector. Take me out there. And then I said, just leave me be there for like an hour. Let me just let me be here. And he did that. And I just found a spot there that was my special spot. And I just declared to myself, that house over there is not my house. I couldn't see it, but I knew where it was. This is my home. My home is in the forest. It's in the woods. This way that we're living in this house is not really working very well. And there's got to be a better way. My place is here with this sense of spiritual connection to God. And it's really about that. That's really what my start was, Guy, of feeling this function of my home and wanting an alternative and being alternative with regard to nature.
How old were you again?
5, 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. So obviously from a very young age, it sounds like there was a lot going on in your home, but you also had the wherewithal to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just really interesting and cool. So how did things evolve? How did things evolve from there?
Well, for me, my great solace was being in school and learning about Thoreau and learning about Emerson and learning about how powerful it can be to write creatively and be loved and known by my English teachers, especially. The humanities were such a refuge for me. And that quality is built into by getting a conscientious objector status during the Vietnam War and courageously writing that based on the cycles of nature as my religion, which was pretty edgy. So I could have just said I'm a Protestant, but that didn't feel like it was my main orientation. And so that sense of developing that truth with myself, of committing myself to what my true spiritual connection was, really formed a character in me that I think really helped me through undergraduate school to really be true to myself.
At what point and how did you decide to pursue therapy, and more specifically, couples?
Yeah. By age 18, I was in therapy, individual therapy and group therapy, and found to be so important to my development, and began working right away with, I hadn't even finished my BA degree. I was already working as a social worker and got licensed that way in Michigan, grandfathered in. But the commitment to families and to love and to the grace of how people can get through unbearable situations through following the felt experience of love. Right away, I was feeling that when I was 20, 21 years old, working as a social worker.
So from right off the bat, David, there's something very kind of amazing and inspiring about you. I mean, you seem to be have been from a very early age, really in touch with not just your own heart and soul and authenticity, but that of those around you, and how important that is, and how it can benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very true. Well, the wonder is that when I first started my job, my title was behavior technician. And the concept was, with behavior mod, I would just turn the screws and adjust these people, and they would get better. They'd behave better. And it was in the time of Johnson's administration, and he released, through an act of presidential power, all the people who were in developmentally disabled and actually mentally ill institutions. They were mentally ill institutions, and the people got returned to their parents that had been brought to the institution for care, who had quite severe disabilities in many cases. And the parents didn't know their children, who are now adults, 20, 21 years old now, had left them when they were babies in many cases. And my job as a social worker was to help these parents and their children to get along. We're now adults, quite powerful physically and do all kinds of impulsive things because they had never been in the world before. These developmentally disabled people, blind, deaf, cognitively disabled people, quite severely often, who are then in the community riding buses and going to work at a sheltered workshop. And my job was to help them to not hurt each other and not hurt anybody else as a primary role. But I found the behavior mob was not the way to do it. These are people who were really, in many cases, couldn't speak. So I formed groups. I had groups constantly running to do what are called body awareness groups, to really get that awareness of love, kindness, safety, care, where the blind person would help the deaf person, and the one with cerebral palsy. We help people on either side of her because she'd fall down, she'd laugh, she'd lose control. The powerful experience, Guy, of seeing the capacity of love, how people transform with love, how they feel that they can trust themselves in a world that's foreign to them, even because they're on the outside now in the world, not in an institution, and to feel that their love was valuable, their friendship was valuable, and they began to really heal and connect and form social bonds that it gives me chills. I mean, here it is, almost 50 years later, it gives me chills to know how the felt experience of love helped them to transform themselves.
When you say the felt experience of love, what do you say more? What does that mean exactly?
It means when we notice the body experience of love and the safety of love, the warm-heartedness of love, the laughter of love, the joy of love, that this is a healing element within us this way, vertically, but a healing element between us also. We want to help other people in the spirit of love. We want to do the caring thing in the spirit of love, not because it should be happening, but because we want to. And that carries into the couple work of transformative couples therapy. It's body-based. It's about not just emotions, but sensations, energy, movement, auditory, visual, and imaginal, and emotional. Being able to be a whole person that through the whole body awareness becomes a knowing person, a discerning person, a clear, not just minded, but clear-bodied person that can really be loving and safe in relationship.
All right, I want to transition to your couples work, but before we do, I want to just ask you specifically about you started this group, which sounds really fascinating to me. What at that time, what made you feel that you could do this with these people?
Yeah,
it's not just any group; it was with a pretty challenged group of people.
Yeah. Challenged and challenging if you were using the wrong model because they didn't suffer fools. And there's something about the awareness that I had that these were people I had to respect, that I did respect. The respect that I had, and also Janet Adler, she was a major inspiration. because she had worked with autistic people in a one-to-one way and even a group way at times, to help them to feel known and seen and felt and heard and reflected. And also having been in theater and learning Viola Spolin's improvisation for the theater, learning how to do circle experiences where people could feel safe enough to be spontaneous and create new neural networks, create new ways of being improvisationally.
I love that. Say more specifically about creating that space. What did you do?
Yeah, I had a partner named Robin Pedersen who helped me to co-facilitate these groups, and we had 10 groups. They were incredible weekly groups that would meet, and we'd be there with them, and ways that these people would learn very deeply how to be trusting. They could come and be spontaneous and be appropriate at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the parts of this, we'd have a circle where, let's say, we're following the leader, and the leader forgets he's a leader and begins flapping his hands, which is something that we're not supposed to do, no hand flapping. But when everyone's flapping their hands with you, you say, oh my gosh, I'm flapping my hands. Get awareness that I'm hand flapping. And that, it makes me laugh because the delight of their self-awareness dawning on them was combined with video. We would videotape them every session.
Wow.
And of every session, they get to see themselves. This is me. This is me. And that seeing oneself with others, makes me, my eyes tear up, is so touching because there's love in the room, there's caring, but it's safe love, it's kind love. We're together as a group helping each other.
So you started talking about the couples work. Let's dive into that. How did that start for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, that example I gave of being in couples therapy was certainly a motivation. I thought, if this is the best there is, I've got to create another model. And I did. And there's something about the transformative couples therapy experience that is so inspiring. I just met this morning with a group of 8 people. We're part of the TCT research project to validate, how does this work, what makes it work, and can we get long-term results from the couples we see in a 16-session model. So that's inspiring to me. And their joy in being there with me, that none of us are paid to do this. It's a voluntary thing. And the research project is a fruit of a labor of the last 40 years of my career. And the quality of seeing it now as an improved research model to go forward by James Madison University and Eastern Mennonite University is thrilling because it inspires me and feeds me to feel this work can go into the world as a research validated method, perhaps.
So when you said you had your own experience in couples therapy and it was not working, what wasn't working specifically about that?
Well, particularly the view of seeing the negative in the relationship and needing every session, having to look at the negative. Let's focus. We're not ready to look at the positive yet. Look at the negative. I'm going, please, we had a great week. We're close. We're intimate. No. Time yet for that. No, I'm not going there. I go, it gives me chills. It was so many years ago, but still a feeling of I'm deprived of being able to be in a positive place. It's not time yet. Excuse me? There must be time made for the positive. When the positive love is there, let's really be with that.
Right.
And that's the basis of TCT is really.
Okay. So let's talk about that. So transformative couples therapy, what is it and how is it different? What do you do?
When I greet my person for the first time, it's in a 20-minute interview before I ever commit to seeing them. And I want to see, can this couple tell each other what they want with each other? Can they say, I want to be kinder with you. I want to be receiving your love. I want more of a sex life with you. Or will they get into being critical and blaming the other one for their suffering? Can they move pretty quickly from a blame and shame model themselves into one that says, I want to talk to you directly, eye to eye, my partner, because David's asking me to do this. I'll speak to you directly right from the beginning, let you know where I am with you, how I want to be with you. I'm on a journey with you. I want to be in this way with you. Mm-hmm. That's the basis of the model. So in that first session, the first thing I asked them is, you said to me last time what you wanted to have with each other in our screening interview. what have you given each other of what you said you wanted to give each other since I saw you last? And that's the model every time we meet. How are you following through on what you said you wanted with each other? How are you giving and receiving? So it's a kind of a my word is my deed model. If I said I'm going to do it, my therapist will check with me. Am I doing this? Am I listening before I speak? Am I cutting you off before you finish your sentence? Do I look at you with respect? Am I being sensitive to your response to me? And if I am, then I'm in the model where this therapy sets the trajectory. It's quite a steep trajectory of growth. If the couple follows that model in the week in between, they continue growing.
Mm. So can you give us an example of like a case study of some couple you worked with? Obviously, we don't need to know their names or specifics, but break it down for us. What might this look like?
It looks like we're, because these are confidential cases, of course, I can give you kind of a composite, but I wouldn't want to quote from a person's session. It's about how are my differences complementary to yours as a couple member? How can I not shame myself, let's say, for having ADD? How can I be with you with dignity and say, I have ADD, but I'm also a really warm and kind person people love and trust. And the partner with the other partner can grow together because she might have a very organized style and be very clear on how to do things, 1 ABC, 2 ABC, 3 ABC, that he can benefit from. If he can set aside his shame of being bad and having ADD or being deficient, that she can really feel him as a worthy partner and be let in by him to be helpful. We cross-pollinate in marriage. I'm in my 38th year. Last night, my wife and I, celebrated our 38th year of being married to each other. And we were reviewing last night over dinner how many stages of life we've gone through together. And most marriages within one marriage. So for me, the deep value of this transformative couples therapy is for the couple members to find the grass is not greener elsewhere. In another relationship, it's within the marriage that the growth transformation can happen.
All right. You got the lights going on here. I just want to pause a moment to thank our sponsors. We're speaking with Dr. David Mars. We'll be back in a few seconds. All right, David. So this sounds easy. It sounds simple. Of course, we know it's not. Why is this so challenging for people? Why? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're laying it out perfectly, so articulately, and yet, what is the challenge here?
I love the question. I believe the challenge is unresolved early deprivation and trauma in people's lives. When they begin to replicate the kind of shame they were exposed to, the kind of not being seen, being ignored, or being misattuned to chronically. And this is true of most people. Most people come from an insecure attached context, and in that, they import those insecure patterns into their marriage. And then the marriage starts to sprout these weeds that often have thorns on them. That are from early patterns that were learned in life defensively and on a survival basis. So what I love is seeing people be able to pluck out the weeds and not repeat those patterns, because they're a lot of friction, like sandpaper, they create in the relationship. But to grow new ways and new patterns, because we know now that the neural networks are always available to be sprouted new in us, always myelinating new patterns in our brains, and experience creates change in the brain. So if I'm creating change in my brain with my partner's recreating change with me, then in the dyadic relationship, we are a transformational couple. We'll continue to ascend in our capacity to be mindful, choiceful, and kind.
When you're working with a couple and there's an interaction that, let's say, isn't coming from a healthy spot, and that little light goes on in your head saying, okay, maybe this is coming from a place of insecure attachment or trauma. How do you do that in the moment? How would you address that?
Yeah. I'll give you an example that is a peak moment. When a couple member is looking in a rage toward their partner for some relatively minor offense, like a look that could kill. And this happens in relationship. There's a certain moment of charge that's really super high. And I say, well, if your partner right now is to move his head over, whose face is behind his face that you're so angry with right now? And that method is very powerful. The person sees, oh my God, that's my father. It's my mother. It's my grandmother.
Oh,
It's
wow.
my brother. And that's who I'm really mad at. Then we begin to have the conversation where the partner literally gets out of the way. And the partner who is getting into that rage place, punitive place, shaming place, can begin speaking to the one that hurt them originally and address that person in what's called a portrayal, a healing portrayal. And that becomes a way that the couple member gets to know, when I'm mad at you to that degree, it's not really all about you. What's coming through me is unfinished business from the past, unfinished trauma. I want to keep working on myself about this. Now, you know the inside of it, my partner. I know the inside of it. When next time I look at you like that, just know it isn't just you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a real consciousness shift in the third eye, the orbitofrontal cortex. I recognize that the enemy is not you, but I do have suffering in my body that I'm still living with.
That takes obviously a lot of responsibility for both parties to be in that moment and to accept that. Are you in a case like that? Might you then work with one of those couples individually?
I do sometimes see a couple members separately with their partners urging with their support. But I try to do it within the couple's dynamic, because if the couple member is present as his or her couple member partner is going through some very deep process, their compassion is sprouted in their heart.
Mm.
Their love is then not just with the adult, but with the younger part they get to meet, that 4-year-old, that 6-year-old, that baby part in the partner, or a teenage part, or a 20-year-old part. To get that relationship to a part within the adult partner is so deepening, because they get the sense, I care about you, but I also care about your younger parts.
Wow. Now, might there be the situation where obviously one member of the couple kind of needs more attention, needs more work?
Right.
It might seem to me immediately like, well, maybe this person does need their own therapist.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are some therapies where I work as a couple therapist and I coordinate closely with each partner's individual therapist, and where I might meet with them even for 50 minutes to really get a really deeper understanding. Let's say they spent years with a couple member doing deep work. I want to know what that was.
Right.
I'm not repeating that, but I'm actually building on it with a couple. So I coordinate with both couple members, individual therapists with their signed release and with their support. And we continue coordinating the therapy as the therapy goes on. So we are speaking to each other by phone messages that are secure, or by little communications that we meet on Zoom periodically to get updated for a breakthrough or a breakdown. So we're always working as a team, the three of us, with the two couple members. For many people, it's the first functional family they've ever had. They have 3 therapists working on their behalf, all coordinating, all talking to each other productively.
So, transformative couples therapy. So you're teaching this to other therapists. Mm-hmm. In what capacity? How are you teaching this? Is this online? Is this in person? Both? What?
It used to be in person. I used to fly to China, to all over the world. And now I'm just working on Zoom, which is amazing, because I get to be working without the travel time, without the jet lag, and to give courses in China, in Netherlands, in India, or anywhere in the world, Australia, and across the US and Canada, of course. But I have 9 courses that I teach, ongoing. They're ongoing courses that couples therapists get to get trained in and have a very intimate relationship with each other that feels safe. We emulate the safety of the couples therapy in the core training groups, in the process training groups, in the webinars that I teach, with a sense of a secure base we're cultivating, with non-projecting language, with owned experience. People really get to see this is how the therapy works. We're doing it right now in the group, not as therapy, but as a coordinated relationship that has purpose to help grow the therapist.
before when you were talking about how the model actually works, you said, we're from the get-go focusing on the positive, on that kind of upward trajectory. Say more about that. There are many models out there. How does this differentiate from those other models of therapy, couples therapy?
Yeah, I could say that wonderful writers like Barbara Fredrickson, amazing therapists like her, Fonagy, all kinds of people who are at this point pretty, if they're still living, they're pretty long lived in their career. For me, at 72, my joy is I'm still able to work and have joy in my work, spring in my step about it. And the way that I see it moving is that I don't know of another couples therapy model that is like TCT. It's quite unique in the field. And I think we have company of very excellent therapies, but it's a question of what kind of therapy does a therapist want to do. Mm-hmm. This is statically based therapy, it's body-based, it's not hyper focused on emotion, not emotion focused, it is body focused. But the way of freedom for the therapist is to really feel that their own loving intent, their inner knowing of their bodies guides them to take the next step. They're not looking at the therapists. The therapists are knowing, not from a cheat sheet of saying, well, now do this, now do that, right, but really based on their own sentient awareness, what is needed for this couple to grow.
Give us an example of that. Sounds amazing.
An example is I'm working with a couple that had a really difficult affair, 2 affairs going at once for one of the couple members. And I was very blunt with him, very direct, very caring, very kind. I said, in your best interest, I want to tell you, I think your relationship right now is teetering. I think you need to make a decision. What do you want with your partner? Is truthfulness really in your best interest right now?
And was the other person there, the partner there?
Right there. And that more full truthfulness, when I met with him next time, which was just yesterday, there was a huge breakthrough in her trust, her love, his trust in himself and in her that had sprouted in the week between because he watched his video twice, took notes about it, saw what he was dissociating that he didn't know about. This goes way back to those body awareness groups of using video. It's more than 40 years I've been doing that. So the quality of his self-awareness was dawning on him that he was acting in ways that he found reprehensible, even in the session. So he made some repairs with her, some corrections of his behavior between sessions. So the time we met, they were so bonded and so in love again. The session before, it was a train wreck of her being so distraught at the end of a rope. So it's a wonderful feeling.
So how did you, as the therapist, you were talking about using your own body sense to determine next moves. Where does that come into play? How does that come into play?
It's largely heart-based for me and feeling that sense of inspiration. Also my belly, also my throat, from my hair standing up, having chills in my body, energetic phenomena, having a sense of a surge of gratitude. This is a big thing. I mean, to express my gratitude to a couple of members who just suddenly broke through to another level of truth-telling, self-awareness, productive truth-telling, not just blurting something out, but being really skillful and bringing the exact awareness to himself he needs to have himself to grow. When his partner responds to that with love, I just help that to be cemented into the relationship, to say, wow, look at that love in her eyes as you begin to tell the truth more deeply. Which for me, if I'm a couple member, I make this awareness, wow, I thought telling the truth was going to get me in trouble. It's actually helped me to feel loved and loving and trustworthy and dignified. That's amazing.
Now, I'm imagining and guessing that type of, sense within our own selves, within our own body, within our own feelings and heart, as you say, has to be cultivated, right? There's a huge amount of trust that we self-trust.
Yep.
Talk to me about your evolution in that self-trust. How did you cultivate that?
Yeah. What I can say is that for me, in the 17 years I led body awareness groups as authentic movement groups as an adult, 17 years of that, I really learned to trust myself more deeply because I'd be witnessing people in a group for an hour or more moving. And later we come in the group and use that model of process language, to speak to each other in a safe, witnessing way, to not give feedback to each other or judge each other, but to really give reflections of witnessing. And that's created very deep trust in me of my body awareness, my sense of how I can be with people in the nonverbal realm. Because in authentic movement, they're not speaking.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving with eyes closed for an hour sometimes. Mm-hmm. And my job as a therapist who's holding the space is to sit with them and be with them. And in 17 years, we had a complete experience of people being kind, loving, and safe with each other. We had more men in those groups than women. It's a miracle. What's the likelihood someone touched someone inappropriately? But it didn't happen. People were really guided by the inner awareness. Where's my hand? Where's this person's body? Gives me chills. It's that respect that's deeply brought in about gender boundaries, about sensitive boundaries of who is able to receive something right now and who is not ready for that. We all developed that in the groups, because there were two of them ongoing always. And the power of it is so inspiring to me still now.
What is it? So we have obviously therapists of all kinds listening to this who I'm sure are just becoming very inspired by you. I mean, you're a very inspiring person. You've been doing this for a while, and you have a sense of love, quite frankly, that exudes, and genuineness, certainly. What does it take to be an effective, quote unquote, couples therapist?
Yeah, I would say in this particular TCT model that what it takes is the humbleness to really be able to know I need to grow to do the work effectively. I need to find what channels of experience do I not occupy? How am I running blind around energy? How do I not experience sensation clearly? How do I not be aware of the tone of my voice in the auditory channel? If I'm willing to grow myself every session in a meditative consciousness, then I'm helping my couple members to grow with me. We grow together. That's the key, is that humbleness and that not just a desire, but a deep meaning. I want to grow as a person, as a therapist, as a partner. I know for me, my relationship with my wife is built on the growth I've been doing in my clinical work. They're totally connected.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us about your program, Transformative Couples Therapy. How can people learn about it? When can people join, et cetera?
Well, interesting timing, because there's a new sign up for 2024. All my courses are filled now for 2023, but a whole new set of courses of core training, multi-channel webinar, process group, supervision groups will be forming for 2024. And my website, cfttsite.com, is the way to get in touch with me, or my email address, davidmarsphd@gmail.com. As Mars, like the planet. And the quality of response would be that I meet with people before they come into these groups. I want to know them.
Sure.
And to talk with them and have a sense of what they're really wanting is part of that sense of the early connection. It's like with my couples. Same thing. Before I take them into my practice, we meet for 20 minutes.
Now, do these enrollees have to be licensed clinicians, psychologists, therapists? What?
Well, licensed clinicians is important. I think there's people that come in that are a little bit pre-licensed. Maybe their hours are done, then their license is not finished. They're also welcome. Counselors, psychiatrists, couples therapists, individual therapists. That the power of the work is in learning together. We're so often a team of learning together. Let's say a group of 6 in core training, where each person is learning something from the others because we have different backgrounds, different strengths to draw on. And that's a very powerful thing to have in a group.
Awesome. We'll have all that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. David, beyond inspiring, my God, I'd love to have you back at a later date. I'm excited to get this out there. But thank you so much for being here. It's amazing.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Guy.
All right. We'll be in touch.
Wonderful.